Well, welcome to this series of Bible Land videos, where today we're going to consider the city of Shiloh. You know, everywhere you travel in Israel, it seems that every significant biblical landmark has a church of one kind or another built right over the top of an ancient ruin that ruins the ancient look of that original site. For example, the traditional location where Abraham was to offer Isaac on Mount Zion on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem has a Muslim mosque dome built right over the top of it. The traditional spot where the angel Gabriel appeared to Mary in Nazareth has the Church of the Annunciation built right over the top of it. And the traditional birthplace of Jesus in Bethlehem has the Church of the Nativity built right over the top of it. And the traditional house of Peter and his mother-in-law in Capernaum has St. Peter's Catholic Church built right over it. The traditional isolated location of the Garden of Gethsemane in Jerusalem has the Roman Catholic Church of all nations built over its grounds, and so it goes on. So it's so refreshing to come to sites like this one we have today in Shiloh, where the only buildings and artifacts we have are ancient ruins from yesteryear. Shiloh is an ancient city mentioned in the Bible more than 30 times, and it's located 17 kilometres south of Shechem on a hill, 714 metres above sea level, about 15 kilometres north of the Israeli settlement of Bethel in the West Bank. And it was the capital of Israel before the first temple was built in Jerusalem. We learn from Joshua 18:1 that Shiloh is mentioned as an assembly place for the people of Israel, where it says that the whole congregation of Israel assembled at Shiloh and set up the tabernacle of the congregation there. While Shiloh's fortunes varied over time, Shiloh was the only place that served as a national religious centre for the children of Israel during the period of the Judges after the death of Joshua. Therefore, Shiloh would be the final resting place for the portable tabernacle that led the children of Israel through the 40 years of wandering through the wilderness. In time, a more permanent temple was built. So by the time we are introduced to Eli, the priest, and Samuel, the portable tabernacle has been done away with, and the Ark of the Covenant rested inside the temple at Shiloh under the watchful eye of Eli, the priest. Shiloh is sacred to three religions: to Muslims, to Christians, and to Jews. Pilgrims of all three faiths come and visit these ancient ruins. On the southeast side of Tel Shiloh are the ruins of mosques and churches and a modern synagogue. During the Middle Bronze II period, from 2000 BC to 1600 BC, the region witnessed a large settlement wave where new cities were founded in the high mountain area of Judea, Ephraim, and Benjamin. Cities such as Jebus, the ancient name for Jerusalem, and others like Shechem, Tirzah, Hebron, and Bethel were all established during this period. One of these new cities was also Shiloh. A massive wall 8 metres high and 3 to 5 metres wide was later built around the entire city during the 17th century BC. The small size of the inner city and the findings of a statue of a bull imply Shiloh was an ancient Canaanite centre of pagan worship. It's during the late Bronze period, around 1400 BC, that Israel, under the leadership of Joshua, capture and occupy the land of Canaan. As a result of the battles between the Israelites and the Canaanites, the settlements in the region of the high mountains deteriorated. Israel refused to drive the Canaanites out, and the Canaanites, for a time at least, were not strong enough to do anything about it. So like today in Israel, where many of the smaller Arab cities in the West Bank have deteriorated under Palestinian control, so the Canaanite city of Shiloh weakened. Following the conquest of the land by the Israelites between 1200 and 1000 BC, which was in the Bible period of the Judges and Samuel, the high mountain area experienced a new wave of settlement. Dozens of villages were established. According to many scholars, the core of the Israelites settled in the areas of Manasseh and Ephraim. Therefore, Ephraim was chosen as the capital city. And only after the death of Saul at Mount Gilboa and the appointment of King David as king did the capital move to Jerusalem. It was in the days of Joshua, after entering the promised land, that in Joshua 18:10 and Joshua 19:32, the land inheritance of 7 tribes, those being Benjamin, Simeon, Zebulun, Issachar, Asher, Naphtali, and Dan, were all allocated to the tribes at Shiloh. It was also in Shiloh that God appointed 6 cities of refuge in Joshua 20, verses 7 to 8. With Shiloh now established as the national religious centre for the children of Israel, the tabernacle and the Ark of the Covenant were now located to Shiloh and would remain there for 300 years until the time of Eli and Samuel, when in 1 Samuel 4:11 the Philistines took the ark after defeating the Israelites in battle, which also resulted in the death of Eli at Shiloh in verse 18. It's during the time that the temple tabernacle and the Ark of the Covenant is at Shiloh that we read about the Bible story of Hannah and the birth of Samuel. In 1 Samuel 1 and verses 1 to 2, we are told of a man from Ephraim called Elkanah, and he has 2 wives, Peninnah and Hannah. Peninnah has given birth to a number of sons and daughters, but Hannah has none. She is barren. She can't get pregnant, as much as she and Elkanah tried. And it's in verse 3 that we are told that once again they make their yearly trip to the temple at Shiloh. And we can see in 1 Samuel 1 verse 9 that it's a temple and not the tent tabernacle from the days of Moses. And can you picture the scene? There they all are in Shiloh, perhaps in a rented room. And there's Elkanah and Hannah and Peninnah and all of her kids running rampant around the room. And it's mealtime. And everyone's crowded into this little room to get their food, to have their meal. And there's Peninnah with all of her kids, with kids everywhere. And there's Hannah. There's Hannah in a corner by herself, sobbing and crying and wishing, just wishing, she had one of those noisy children to take care of, to love. And it's all too much for her. And it overwhelms her. And it's just too much for her to bear. And so she gets up and she leaves that room. And the record doesn't say that she left to go to the temple. Maybe she did. But maybe in her sorrow, she just ended up there. Either way, that's where she comes. And once she's there, she prays. And oh, did she pray. And her prayer is recorded in 1 Samuel 1 and verse 11, where she says, O Yahweh of armies, if you will indeed look upon the affliction of your servant, and remember me and not forget your servant, but will give to your servant a son, that I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life, and no razor shall touch his head. Look at this woman. I'm just a servant, she says. I'm just a servant. But I'm not just anybody's servant. I'm your servant. I'm your servant. I'm your servant, O God. Over and over again, she makes that emphasis. I am your servant, God. I'm nobody else's. I'm yours. I'm all yours. I can't tell you how moving and how emotional it was to stand there, to stand in that place where that temple once stood, in that doorway to that temple, and to think about Hannah standing there, sobbing, praying, pleading to her God, not knowing that just a few years later she would return to Shiloh, to this exact spot at the temple door, with a son. with her son. And at the Shiloh excavation site today is a beautiful board with Hannah's thanksgiving song and prayer written on it as a testimony to her faith and to her conviction. And this is what she said, and it's called Hannah's Song, and it's recorded in 1 Samuel 2, verses 1 to 10. And just the first two verses say, "My heart rejoices in the Lord. My horn is exalted in the Lord. I will speak out against mine enemies because I rejoice in your salvation. There is none as holy as the Lord, for there is none besides you, neither is there any rock like our God." And those words of praise and thanksgiving were said to God while she was standing right here in Shiloh. After the Ark of the Covenant was relocated to Jerusalem under King David's rule, Shiloh became irrelevant for many years. But in time, after years of neglect, Shiloh was resettled around 800 BC. Several structures at the current Tel Shiloh site were found from this period. This period ended around 100 years later with the Syrian invasion and the conquest of the 10 northern tribes. We read in 2 Kings 15 verses 27 to 29 about the wickedness of the northern tribes of Israel. And in verse 9, in 732 BC, it says that in the days of Pekah, king of Israel, Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, came and captured Kedesh, Hazor, Gilead, and Galilee, all the land of Naphtali, and he carried the people away captive to Syria. This invasion affected the northern part of the 10 tribes of Israel, but Samaria survived because the Assyrians stopped when they got to Megiddo, sparing the Jezreel Valley and sparing the tribes south of it, including Ephraim and Shiloh. But in 2 Kings 17 verses 5 to 6, we find the king of Assyria came again and invaded all the land and came to Samaria, and for 3 years he besieged it. And imagine that. Imagine being locked in your town. Imagine being locked in your city with the enemy army surrounding you with no way out. And your idols, your pagan gods, sit on their shelves and sit in their corners. Useless. Useless to your needs. No matter how much you pray to them, no matter how much you beg them to let you get out of this situation, they sit there useless. And this time, there will be no second chances for these people to change your ways. This time, there'd be no second chances for these people to say, "I'm sorry." This time, the Assyrian army ruthlessly crushed the remaining territories of the northern kingdom of Israel. Shiloh, like other cities and villages in Samaria, were all destroyed and its people taken into captivity into Assyria. And only now, after 3,000 years, does Shiloh speak from its ancient ruins, speaking of times of great prosperity and faith and love for the things of God, only to be shattered and destroyed by the indulgences of sin and wickedness. It's at times like this, seeing the remains of Shiloh brought back to life in these excavations, that we are reminded of Hannah's words and Hannah's prayer in 1 Samuel chapter 2, where she says, "I'll rejoice in the Lord, for great is your reward." May God bless us in our difficult times, in our times of trouble and despair, like he did for Hannah, and strengthen our faith and strengthen our belief to wait in patience for the soon and certain return of our Lord Jesus Christ to the earth. May God's blessings be with you today and always, through Jesus Christ's name. Amen.